Hey folks, Nick here from Another BookTube channel, and today I'll be reviewing Blue World by Robert McCammon. This is the last McCammon book that I read in 2023. I read a bunch of his stuff that year that I really enjoyed. He's become like a new favorite author of mine. I haven't really disliked anything I've read of his, and for the past 2 years, one of his books has been my book of the year. See my 2023 book rankings video for more on that. But yeah, I was really looking forward to this one because I've had a lot of success with him. This one is different than his other stuff that I've read because it is a short story collection. Everything else I've read has been a novel. So this is a handful of short stories, and then the back half of it is a novella. The titular Blue World takes up the majority of this. I guess maybe like a little less than half of it, rather. So like any short story collection, there are going to be some that are better than others. What I would like to do is maybe just talk about a few of the standouts, the ones that really stuck with me. What I did was I put the book down after a day, and then I went back and I looked at the titles of the stories, and if I was able to remember immediately what that story was about, then I knew that like that's one that stuck with me. That's one I should talk about. So off the bat, I'll mention this is, I would say, a horror collection for the most part. There is definitely there are touches of magical realism as well. And if you read Boy's Life by McCammon, you know how proficient he is at that. He can get borderline Bradbury-ish in his skill level there. And that's something that I really love about McCammon. That's something one of the reasons I've gravitated towards him is his ability to write frightening scenes that'll get under your skin, but also write these incredibly beautiful, like, human moments and find ways to take something that is ordinary and twist it a little bit to add like a little bit of magic to it, to the point where like you can like feel it yourself. It's a strange combination to be able to write so beautifully while also writing some really like gruesome stuff sometimes. And the tone is set early. The first short story in here is called Yellow Jacket Summer. And if you have a problem with bugs, and like bees in particular, yellow jackets, this story is gonna mess with your head, mess you up. It's a very squirmy type of story about a family that, runs out of gas at the wrong gas station in the wrong small town that's oddly deserted with some strange folks around, and a little too many bees. We'll put it that way. Little too many bees. So if you've got issues with like bugs on your skin, yeah, that's going to be a good story for you. That'll give you some nightmares. Really fun tone setter. The next one I'll talk about is a story called Makeup, which I really enjoyed. It's about a thief that steals a makeup box, I guess, from a movie museum. Like this makeup box belonged to a horror movie star from like, I guess, the silent era, or just like, really old, whatever. And he finds that when he applies the makeup to himself, depending on what he chooses, he's able to like take on a different personality based on the makeup. That's how I'll phrase it. It's a really fun idea. And this one in particular, I would love to see in like a Twilight Zone type of TV show. I think it would be a really fun one to adapt, because it's a little bit cheesy. Like what happens, it's very much, it feels to be very much like a kind of 50s cautionary tale about something that could never possibly happen to a real human being. Just a really fun story through and through. The next one I want to talk about, though, is my favorite of this entire book. It's called Night Crawlers, and this one isn't really a horror story, I would say. At least maybe not in the traditional sense. It is about these folks at a diner. This guy comes in. He is I think it's a Vietnam veteran. I think Vietnam. Yeah, maybe. But anyway, he's obviously like been up all night, very jittery, and he's demanding like coffee to keep staying awake. And the story very much is about the horrors of war and how it sticks with the veterans that come home. It's very much about post-traumatic stress disorder. What's happening to this veteran is he's having dreams about something that happened to him. Like, his entire squad was wiped out in an ambush, but he survived. And so now he's having these dreams about the squad, about this encounter, and the dreams are invading reality, and it's affecting him, and it's affecting wherever he's at. So it's causing like carnage and mayhem because this war dream becomes real while he falls asleep. And it's a really beautifully written story. I have to say, there's a lot of war stories out there, anti-war stories out there, that are all kind of touch on this topic. I've never seen it done quite this way. Again, it's a really interesting hook, and it's an interesting way of exploring how PTSD can affect not just the veterans, but the people that are around them, based on their behavior, based on just having them around, and just how that trauma kind of affects everybody. The next one that I highlighted or put a pin in is one called Pin. This one's nasty. It's this one is the one that was made me the most like squeamish and squirmy, because it is literally just a very short story about a person who is working up the courage to put a pin in their eye, because they're insane. Obviously, I can't even open my eyes because it's freaking me out. But yeah, they're insane, obviously, and it's just them like hyping themselves up to like do this. Oh my god, it is nasty, and I can't open my eyes. Okay, let's talk about something completely different. The next story that I'll talk about is Night Calls the Green Falcon. This is about an old guy who was a serial star in the 50s. He played a character called the Green Falcon, a superhero, kind of like a Batman type. But he's, serials are a thing of the past, and he hasn't really worked since then. But he's still hanging out in LA in a really like crappy apartment complex, and he's just completely washed. One day, his neighbor, a young girl that he really likes, is killed. She's murdered by a serial killer, and he catches a glimpse of the serial killer as he escapes. And rather than go to the police because he thinks that they're not going to be able to help, he goes to his closet and he pulls out the Green Falcon outfit that the studio let him keep. He puts it on, and he goes out into the night, and he tries to, find her killer and bring him to justice. And I think it's a really interesting story because it's a superhero story. It's like a breakdown of a superhero story. It kind of reminded me of Watchmen a little bit, about like these old over the hill guys that used to dress up and save people, even though in this case he did it, fictionally, trying to recapture that feeling of usefulness, and re-inspire hope in not just others but also in himself. It's really, it's another example of McCammon being able to find magic in kind of ordinary situations, and even in the most extreme situations. So this guy's investigation takes him to some really seedy places. The first stop is a strip club, and of course his first encounter there is people meeting him and making fun of him, and being very antagonistic. But he's, with just like the confidence of the suit, he's able to inspire in some of them like a feeling of like goodness. Like they see him trying to do good, and in the way he composes himself and the way he's just trying to do something noble, even some of the seedier characters start to come around and they offer to help. And it's a really like maybe not altruistic's the word, but optimistic story. I don't know how realistic it is, but it was a lot of fun, and I think it's interesting because this is 1990 that this book was published. And so superheroes like weren't as mainstream as they are today. You know, there were some. There was a couple Batman movies. There was the Superman movies. But for the most part, it was still a niche area. But this today, I feel like this is a very current type of story. And I just thought it was really interesting. I thought it was really beautiful at times. So yeah, Night Calls the Green Falcon, a good one. And the last one I'll talk about is the title novella Blue World. This one is about a priest, Father Lancaster, who one day an erotic actress comes into his confessional, and she's not confessing anything, but one of her friends and co-workers the previous night was murdered. And so she's just come to ask the priest to like say a prayer for her. You know, she doesn't actually believe in anything. She just thought that this was something that she could do for her friend. As she's leaving, the priest catches a glimpse of her, and that kind of sets off this journey into temptation for him. You know, he's obviously led this, this lifestyle, this virginal lifestyle as a priest. But his parish, his church is right next to the red light district. So like he could see the red X neon signs like from his bedroom window. And he's never gone to that part of town, but seeing her, his curiosity is piqued, and he goes there. He goes to like a theater. He goes to like a sex shop, and he sees things that are very confusing and overwhelming to him. And he ends up befriending this porn star, Deborah, and they form like a sort of bond, like not quite a romantic relationship, although that's certainly something to question about whether or not it is. Or it's or an intimate relationship. It's just an interesting, really like extreme example of the ultimate like pure type of person being led into the most deplorable places that the world has to offer. And of course, there is that murderer that's around, who is obsessed with these porn stars, that thinks that they are in love with him, and he does not take kindly to seeing other men hang out with those stars because he thinks that they are only for him. So, interesting story. Plays a lot with religion, obviously, and kind of the virtues and the tenets of it. This one particularly I found interesting because McCammon is from Alabama, and I'm pretty sure he is a Christian. I think or Catholic. It's mentioned in the back of one of his books, or maybe I saw it in Wikipedia or something. And I've been to Alabama. They love their Jesus down there. They love Jesus. So I just find it interesting that this guy who spent his whole life in Alabama would write a story like this, because it is very critical of the church in a lot of ways. And what he has his priests doing, I don't know, excommunicated, is that the word, to like be shunned and removed from priesthood? But it would probably be enough to get that done in real life. I don't know, but fun story. Not my favorite that's in here, but still really, really good. Like I said, Nightcrawlers is really, I think, a pinnacle here. But overall, really, really good collection. I recommend this one if you can find yourself a copy. I forgot to assign an arbitrary and subjective grade to this book. 8 out of 10. Let me know if you've read Blue World in the comments below. Let me know what your favorite stories from it are. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. But now, it's time to get back to reading.